The restaurant went quiet when Claire took the plate from the old man's hands and placed it behind the counter. Walter stood near the entrance, holding his worn cloth bag against his faded brown coat.
You can eat outside,
Claire said calmly. A few guests laughed. At the nearest table, Evelyn covered her mouth and smiled. Walter's fingers tightened around the strap of his bag. Claire picked up a cardboard box containing leftover food. Take this, and use the back door. More laughter followed. Walter accepted the box without arguing. He was 78, thin, deeply reclused, and looked unmistakably poor. Yet something in the way he studied the elegant restaurant suggested he had come there for a reason. Before we continue, stay with this story because the reason Walter entered that restaurant was very different from what anyone inside believed. Less than 10 minutes earlier, Walter had walked through the bright glass entrance wearing an old brown coat with repaired sleeves. He carried a cheap cloth bag and kept touching the old watch on his wrist whenever he became nervous. He had asked for a glass of water. Claire, the restaurant manager, looked him over before answering. She was used to protecting the restaurant's polished image, and Walter did not fit it. When Claire asked whether he had a reservation, Walter quietly explained that he did not. He only wanted something simple to eat and a place to sit for a few minutes. Evelyn, a wealthy regular in a dark burgundy suit, had been listening from nearby. "Maybe he's at the wrong restaurant," she said with a laugh. Several guests smiled. Walter heard them and said nothing. Claire brought him a menu. Walter opened it, then slowly opened his old wallet. He counted his bills twice. There were only a few, and Evelyn noticed. "That's not going to be enough," she said. Walter closed the menu. "I only need something simple." Claire took the menu, noticed a stain on his sleeve, and her expression hardened. "This is a private dining room. You can't stay here looking like this?" Walter glanced at the guests and asked if he could wait near the entrance. Claire shook her head. "You need to leave." Walter lowered his eyes. "I understand." He turned toward the door. His stomach suddenly made a quiet sound. Evelyn laughed again, and others joined her. Walter's face reddened. Claire disappeared into the kitchen and returned with a cardboard box. "Here, take the leftovers." Walter stared at it. He had not asked for leftovers. He had asked for a chance to sit down. Still, he accepted the box. "Thank you," he whispered. Claire pointed toward the rear hallway. "Back door." Walter began walking. Guests watched him carry the box past their tables, whispering and laughing. At the doorway, Walter stopped and looked back at the dining room. His eyes moved across the polished tables, expensive decorations, and the empty chair beside Evelyn. For a moment, his tired expression changed. It was not anger. It was disappointment. Then he turned away. But before he reached the back door, the front entrance opened. Richard, the owner of the restaurant, walked inside. He saw the old man carrying a box of leftovers and suddenly stopped. His eyes widened. "Walter?" The old man froze. Claire's confident expression disappeared, and Evelyn stopped smiling. Nobody understood why the owner had just spoken the old man's name as if he hadn't seen him in decades. Richard crossed the dining room and stopped in front of Walter. He gently took the cardboard box from his hands. "You came," he said quietly. "I wanted to see the place," Walter replied. Richard looked at the old coat and the untouched box. "You should have called me." "I wanted to come as a customer." Richard listened. "Did they treat you badly?" Walter hesitated. "I asked for water," he said. "That was all." The room became silent. Richard turned toward Claire. "You gave him leftovers and sent him through the back?" Claire defended herself. "I was protecting the restaurant's standards." Richard looked around. "Then you protected the wrong thing." He asked Walter to sit at the empty table near the window. His old watch slipped down his wrist as he sat, and he quickly pushed it back into place. Richard sat across from him. Years earlier, Richard had worked in Walter's small cafe. Walter taught him how to run a kitchen and treat people who had nothing to offer in return. After Walter's wife died and his business collapsed, they lost contact. Walter never asked Richard for help. Now he was sitting across from him in a worn coat, holding a box of food that should never have been offered to him. Claire finally understood. "Why didn't you tell us who you were?" Walter looked confused. I didn't come here because I was important? Richard asked why he had come. Walter placed both hands on the table. I heard you were opening this location. I wanted to see what you had built. He paused. I wanted to know how people were treated when nobody thought they mattered. Richard looked toward Claire. The laughter was gone. Even Evelyn lowered her eyes. Then he noticed two servers avoiding her eyes. He asked whether poor-looking customers were treated differently. Nobody answered. Finally, a server admitted Claire kept certain customers away because they didn't fit the atmosphere. Claire insisted she was protecting the restaurant's reputation. Richard looked at her. A reputation built on humiliating people isn't worth protecting. He removed Claire from management that afternoon. Evelyn quietly left. Walter did not celebrate. He only asked whether the employees were treated fairly. The question stayed with Richard. Over the following weeks, he discovered that Claire's behavior had affected the staff too. Employees were afraid to challenge her. Richard changed the reporting system and made one rule clear. Nobody could be humiliated because of appearance or income. A month later, Walter returned. A young server offered him the table near the window. Walter smiled. He still wore the same old coat and carried the same cloth bag. Richard joined him. Walter looked around and quietly said, "Now it feels like your place." Richard smiled. Walter had never wanted revenge. He wanted to know whether success had changed Richard. If this story meant something to you, share it with someone who believes respect should never depend on money or appearance. Tell us, if you were Walter, would you have stayed silent after being humiliated or walked away? Subscribe for more stories about dignity and second chances.